Hello, my name is Jess and this is my evaluation for my AS media portfolio. The genre of my music magazine was indie and my target audience was females and males aged 16 to 25, any ethnic origin but predominantly white, heterosexual orientation and class C to B. In my prelim I did have knowledge of how to use software like Photoshop because I did it at GCSE, but my prelim was basic and boring. My practical work has improved because I have made it a lot more interesting and appealing. My cover is a lot better because my text and quality of image is much better, whereas on my prelim they weren't very well thought out and boring. On my contents page, the layout is much more interesting and varied, whereas on my prelim, it was more basic. For my feature, it was much more prepared and the images were a lot better quality. For a lot of my research, my primary and secondary research, I used the internet. This was a good tool to look at style models of existing magazines and to conduct surveys that I can ask my audience. I did this on SurveyMonkey. I made a survey and I posted it to Facebook and Twitter, allowing it to reach a mass audience. This was really helpful as after it was done it conducted graphs and things so that I can present my findings. Another tool that I used was Photoshop. This was mainly for my practical work. I had used this a lot previously because I did media and GCSE, but for my AS portfolio I needed to expand my skills and make them much better quality. I used a lot of different tools on Photoshop. One tool that I didn't use before and that I learned how to use was brushes. This allowed me to add more creative effects to my cover, contents page and all page spread. Another tool that I used was iMovie. I used this to edit my evaluations once they were finished. On this I used basic tools such as cutting out sections of my work and using blue screen. I think that I could improve and use a lot more of the tools on iMovie that it supplies if I am able to use it next year or in my continuing studies. I used Blogger for my media portfolio. This was a good way of uploading my work, especially my research, to an online platform where I could share it with a mass audience. This helped me a lot because if in future with employers and universities they can access it easily and see my work. I was very familiar with using cameras as I had used them for both photography and media in GCSE, but for my AS I needed to expand my knowledge, therefore I needed to learn how to use depth of field and aperture to make my images that I produce of better quality. I used a Canon 6D camera to film my evaluation and to take my images for my practical work. I was very successful in producing good quality images, and I think that my knowledge of cameras is much better than it was before. In order to understand what I wanted to make for my practical work, I looked at style models. I used style models from Kerrang, Enemy and Q magazines. What I noticed through their contents pages, covers and feature articles was that they used a colour palette that went through all of them. A common colour palette that I noticed was red. Red is a colour that appeals to both genders. It can appeal to females because it connotes desire and love, and males because it connotes danger. I thought this was a good colour to use and used it on my practical work. Another convention that I noticed mostly on covers was that the text, or that for the masthead they used a bold text that was mostly situated in the corner in the left-hand corner of the page. This would be the main aspect. Aside from the main image, this would be the main aspect that the eye would be drawn to when my audience is looking at it. Therefore, for my cover, I made sure that my masthead was bold and of effective typography and drew my attention of my audience. I broke conventions through using more creative camera angles and editing techniques. I did this because it would look a lot different from my competitors. When I was looking at style models, they used conventional images, like straight-on images of artists, whereas I tried to vary my angles from low images to high images. This made them a lot more interesting and unique to the audience. The mise-en-scène in my images show that my artist is wearing barely any makeup, basic, simple makeup, and stylish and fashionable clothes. This represents my target audience because the images are not over stylized. Instead, they are more relatable and the audience can see themselves within the images. Oscar B's theory was that youth are presented as fun. In my images, this is represented through the colours that are on my images. The colours are very bright and fun, such as yellow. This can connote that, along with being rebellious, youths are also fun. When producing the layout for my practical work, I found it quite difficult. The best piece of practical work that I produced was my feature and my contents page. I think that the layout is very stylish and fits conventions and is appealing to the audience. However, when producing my cover, it was difficult to fit the layout to my audience and make it look as professional as my contents page and feature. I think it was because of the image that on the cover that made it so hard to pick my layout, because it was hard to fit my text around the image. I think the best institution to distribute my product would be IPC. I think this because it does not have an indie magazine, purely indie music, and I think that it would allow them to make more money for their business. They do produce Kerrang magazine, however, even though Kerrang do focus on some indie bands, they also focus on rock as a genre also. Therefore, they are more varied and not solid to one genre. I think it's better to go with a conglomerate company because printing costs will be much lower and profits will be much higher for my magazine and for their company.